We're ready to rip. I call the meeting to order, okay? Honestly, this should be a meeting that it travels at the speed of sound. The first one, Trish, we have Trish Sowell here. And she wants money, but I've yet to see what it is. But what it is, this is not out-of-state travel, but everything's going to be paid for by the other people.
It would just be 2 days.
Yeah, why don't you explain to the community what you're doing?
So I am the, so I take the 8th grade. Remember, we're doing our new shipbuilders tour, which I'm super stoked about for next year. But this is a company other than World Strides, and World Strides is the company we've used for at least the past 6 years. And World Strides does a fine job, but there's other options out there, and there's one called EF, and Carrie and I were talking. He had some experience traveling with them. They travel with student groups, college groups, just people that want to travel and have different things to offer, and their cost seems way more effective. So it might be a cost savings to our families. And they fly people out there. So like it's a shorter time that you go out, so you don't have the bus all the way there and back. World Strides is looking at phasing out the busing. So at any rate, to make a long story, short story longer, whatever you want to say, they want to bring me out to Boston so that they can show me, and not just me, but about 20 other teachers, what their program is all about. So I'm just looking to go out there, and it's kind of like getting to know other teachers that travel with their students and the company and what they can offer. That's in October. I think it was the 14th through the
17th or something.
the 21st.
You want permission to do this so that we can pay for the sub that comes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be a substitute that you.
Yeah. Otherwise, what would you do?
I would just go to work and do my.
Be bitter. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, are there any questions? Are there any questions by the committee members?
I make a motion to approve her request.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because, if you can get it for a little less, the more kids are going to be able to participate.
They were already looking at for like next year's trip, and I'm like, I can't.
Oh, not
it's
for next year's trip?
It would not be for next year's trip because we have already signed up and got pricing from World Strides.
Okay.
So we'd have to like throw out the baby in bathwater and start over again.
Yeah, this is really good that you.
Yeah.
With them. Yeah.
Right.
I would just ask for like a report maybe.
Sure.
So that
Absolutely.
it could be passed on, all the information that you received.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, Tricia, do you know what kind of cost savings the new group might bring?
I don't know, but when he priced out like next year's trip against World Strides, it was comparable.
Yeah.
And for World Strides, we're taking a bus.
Right.
So there'd be that too. We'd be flying rather than busing, which is always better because you have more time to do things if you can get there quicker.
Sure.
And not have to take the bus. So I don't know if it's.
Experience for the students.
Yeah.
Too,
Absolutely. Some of our kids might never fly.
Yeah, they probably.
I don't know if it'd be a huge cost, but if you look at, every year the prices go up. So if this, or for next year, the price would be comparable to World Strides bus trip, I would say that it would be a cost savings because, World Strides price is going to go up. And if, you get what I'm saying there.
Does World Strides have pricing for flights too that you could compare
Yep.
apple to apple?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
When I told World Strides that I was pricing EF, because, that's what you do when you work salespeople.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, we won't be able to beat their price. I mean, they told me that.
Yeah, I'm sure. They're all.
My main concern
so much
is,
bigger.
are we gonna get the same quality of service? Like World Strides gives us humans that sit in the hallway outside our kids' rooms all night so that they don't escape. Like those kind of nice, things that they do. Otherwise, they both provide tour guides and transportation when we're there and all of, the food and all of the things. But it's some of those more.
Yeah.
I think EF has been maybe around longer than World Strides, so.
Yeah, good.
I'll be glad.
Tony, did you second the motion?
I'll second it, yeah.
Okay, all right. Is there discussion? Any discussion? Chris, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor of the motion, aye, say aye. Aye. So thanks a lot. This is a real good thing to do.
Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, thank you.
You guys, jumping to the next item, right?
Yeah, right, the second item, the last item on
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
agenda.
I am. Give you two minutes. Did I give you full one? You just need to.
I just need a tap to.
Yeah.
I didn't print them off in color. but That's-
This is not in your packet because it's confidential and it can't be shared with the public. So this is being shared with you for your eyes only. The state has not yet released the state data, and they asked that if we share data, that it not be shared out publicly.
Oh, okay.
So because this
This
is-
is the state stuff.
This has state comparison data. When we met, and we just talked about it, we wanted to be able to give you a little bit of context, and the reason is that I know everybody wants to compare last year's data with this year's data to see what kind of gains we made. But the test changed, so you can't, it's like apples and carrots, not even fruits. So this first part that you got, this part is our actual data. That this is all just each school and the district, and this was in your packet. Do you not have this in front of you at all? In your,
Yeah, this was in board book.
it was, and so I didn't make copies of this, I'm sorry, I thought
Okay,
you would have
okay, yeah.
those. So we're able to look at, so just so you know, the ELA scores encompass the reading scores and the writing scores. So ELA is all of it. And then there's math as well. And if you want to take some time to kind of look at those and see if you have any questions overall. And then I do want to talk about these red and blue sheets with you a little bit once you've had a chance to look at the data for yourselves, unless you already looked and you don't want a chance to do that.
I looked, but I can't remember.
Would anybody like these printed for them?
Yeah, do that. Could you?
Who needs a copy? Just you? Because I can give you my copy. I can give them-
Well, everybody, yeah, I guess they're gonna be online. I'll just look at them real quick.
Hey, Matt, do you want?
I have it right.
Okay. Tony, are you wanting, or
So you're talking about printing what's?
what was on board book?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
could.
So two of these. Chris, do you need one of these printed?
If you're gonna print some, I'll take one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't send you to do it just for me.
So maybe while he's printing those, if you want, we could talk about the one that's in front of you. And again, I'm not gonna say any state scores out loud, but if you wanna just go to the one that says overall ELA, forward score comparison, down on the bottom.
Yeah, right.
What I tried to put in here is a combination of things. So you've got the percentage of students that are at what we would call where we would be expecting them to be and above. So that percentage that's in the column, that is what that is. The gap, where I have down there, like the gap of 8, that gap that's there, shouldn't say any numbers. That's just kind of showing you what is the gap between MPSD and the state.
Yeah,
So we have a gap, we had an original gap, and then the gap grew. And then the gap stabilized just a little bit there, but in general, we are behind the state that much in our overall ELA scores. The reason that I wanted to draw your attention to the comparison between where it says the increase from last year to this year for the state and then the increase for MPSD is that is a way for us to kind of say, based on how the state did last year and based on how the state did this year, how did we compare? Because we
Right, yeah,
can't
that's
compare the
good.
test scores. So as you can see, we, our school district score grew at about the same rate that the state's grew. Overall.
I guess that's right, yeah.
And then the next page would be it would just be the reading achievement. And then again, we have writing broken down and math broken down.
So is this the median or is this the average on the state or what?
This is the percentage of students at proficient and advanced.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you much, yeah.
which they're not calling it proficient and advanced anymore,
Okay, okay.
but that's, which we all know.
So we're still in
Just
the lab.
stick with it for now.
Right, now it's advanced in meeting, right?
It is me approaching, I don't remember.
Okay.
Yep.
Was it a different test this year?
Yes, they completely changed the ELA, well, I shouldn't say completely, they made big changes to the ELA portion, which makes it, you can't compare it now.
Right. Are they expecting to change it again this year?
I don't think so. I think it was a change that was needed and it was welcomed and, but as you can see, it caused scores to jump across the state.
Why do they keep changing how they take tests?
I think changing with the times, trying to make it better. So here's the big change. There was this thing called the TDA, text dependent analysis. It was a writing portion that the kids did where they were supposed to sit for like however long it took them. It started out to be they could only have 45 minutes. Basically, they would get a prompt on the screen where they were asked to compare two different texts that they would read and then write a response to it. And
Okay,
they changed that writing portion to be a better match for how kids write in general. So I think the changes were really good changes, in my opinion.
So what are your takeaways from all this data?
thank you.
I think my big, really overarching takeaways would be that we're the red boxes and our red boxes are going up and they're on an upward trajectory along with the state.
They are this, yeah, they are this.
They are.
Yeah. that's-
And I would say, that's true for, if you're looking at reading. It's small increases, but there's increases. The part, I think that, the state made a bigger increase than we did for this year, which was surprising to me, honestly.
Yeah,
I think I'm concerned about the gap growing. That bothers me, that the gap is growing between us and the state instead of leveling off.
Yeah, that's not in everyone though, right? I mean,
No. I was looking specifically at reading when I was. It would appear if you like just look at the ELA forward overall. That gap's kind of all over the place. I mean, there's 3 data points. I think I probably am most disappointed about our math scores, to be honest with you, if you look at the math page. To see that gap growing. See that gap?
oh, yeah,
That's
well,
a pretty big gap there.
yeah,
We
it is.
have a,
so how did, this might be a dumb question, but
a.
maybe I'm just missing something, but if the gap got bigger everywhere else, how did the gap get smaller on the overall score?
How did one, say that again?
Reading, ELA, hold on just a minute.
If you look at the overall
Yep.
forward score comparison, the gap there actually got better. Got smaller. But like in every other area, the gap got bigger. So maybe I'm missing something, but.
Oh, yeah,
One thing too, and I don't know if you explained this when I was out there, but so not only did they change the test, they also changed the way in which it's normed
Cut scores.
and the cut scores are. So in 1 year, they changed the test, which is what the kids got to know, and they changed how they put kids into the categories of advanced, proficient, and that. So with all of that, that's kind of why you're getting, in a normal year, you wouldn't be getting these sheets
No.
because we'd be able to go, here's where we were last year, here's where we were this year, and we move on. But this year, if you are wanting to make that comparison, it just requires a little bit more look at the state and then what their average is comparatively, because it's really the only common denominator we have to look
it's
at.
a good thing to know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm even more confused because I look at all the individual scores and I see that gap getting bigger. And then I look at the overall score and somehow it's lower, so I don't know if that's just like a typo or if that's just something weird with the formula. Do you guys follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at the overall score and.
The overall ELA.
Overall ELA, this one?
Yeah, and if you look at the gap,
Yeah.
on that one went down considerably.
Yep.
Relative to where it was. And then if you look at all the, and I'm assuming maybe this is a faulty assumption, but I'm assuming the overall forward score comparison is some sort of compilation of all the other individual scores, which all, like, that gap got wider.
The ELA score only has the reading and the writing under it. So,
That's combined.
but, yeah,
Okay.
yes, yeah, the math score isn't part of that one, so the
Well-
math, yeah, we wouldn't look at that.
It's, the state is moving ahead faster than we are, that's what it is, isn't it?
I'll double check my numbers, but I feel pretty good about them.
Yeah.
So again, this is a little bit confusing, but I wanted to give you something of a comparison in some way that made sense. Because if you just took last year, Jackson's, I just picked a school, you look at Jackson's scores for this year and Jackson's scores for last year, you're going to see some growth that I don't think is real because this
Oh, you don't
thing
think it's
changed the
real?
test. And so I think when the forward scores were originally looked at, there was some celebration that I didn't jump on that celebration bandwagon because we were told not to, because we wanted to see what happened when they put in the cut scores and when we saw the state comparison.
Is that true for Riverview too?
Well, I'm always happy about what's happening at Riverview. Just kidding.
Here's another question on, well, thanks for putting this together, at least giving us an idea. I guess the positives are that we did go up across the board, so that's good. I'm curious, the other element that I'm assuming we probably won't know until the report cards come out is that there's all the other criteria that they score us on, right, outside of just, the raw scores, which is certainly part of it, so
We will do that.
we probably won't really know how we compare until that
So
officially.
we get the whole report card, yeah.
Well, and we don't know what they're gonna do with report cards this year because they can't do a growth score the way they have either. So there's gonna be.
They'll have to change their
they're
calculator.
gonna do something different, so that will be, I'm sure, interesting.
It's kind of like moving the goalposts.
It'll-
Very much. We just spent all this freaking
Yeah.
getting ready for this, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of frustrating, but
The other thing that I think too, that I noticed was, as we're looking at the data coming in my view, we've got 3 sets of data to look at. We've got internal SFA assessments that our teachers give our kids every week. Then we have, the snapshot of the FAST bridge. And then we have the one-shot state test. So all year, what we were trying to do is go, what will our growth be more like? Will it be like we see in our internal assessments that staff are giving kids? Or will it be more comparable to the FAST bridge data? So in our, as we looked at that, if you were to look at volume of growth, our FAST bridge does show a trend of growth, minus fourth quarter. Showed us a trend of growth, but it was slow, steady growth for those first 3 times they took it, as opposed to the gap of growth in our internal assessments that they're using the curriculum for does show wider growth. And so one of the things we want to do this year is to say, if we're looking at indicators, what we figured out is that as we will be able to look at our FAST bridge data coming in during the school year, it may give us a better indication as to what, it may correlate better, in other words, to the state test results. Maybe. There was 1 year that it did. So, that's one thing that we may, we had these goals based on the state test score. What do they call a state test? It's an autopsy report, because what are you gonna do to get it better? Whereas our FAST bridge is not an autopsy report,
Yeah.
it's a quarterly
Yeah,
report.
yeah,
Or beginning, middle, and end, where we're gonna hopefully be able to chart some growth and then use the data that we get from that to help kids make better gains.
Any questions or other?
So how do you feel about this? What were your,
cautiously
what were your
optimistic.
expectations and how do you relate to the results?
So every time that you implement a new curriculum, it is expected that you would have an implementation, but it is not I mean, that's just in all the research. It is not expected that you would take off.
Yeah,
You
right,
have this huge.
because there's a whole lot of other
Right.
adjustments being made, yeah.
So I think that if the fact that we stayed steady and moved up a little is exciting to me in the sense that we didn't have a dip. Our score didn't go down.
Oh, we didn't have a dip, okay.
So, I feel like that our FastBridge results, if I was rounding it off, I would say we improved at about 5% in the whole district on our FastBridge assessment, which is about what we did with the forward. And so there's a correlation there too. So I feel like we now have work
Oh,
to
okay.
do to
Oh, that's
figure out kind of what can we work on in FastBridge as far as looking at that assessment and saying, what are the kinds of things kids aren't able to do on that assessment? And how can we tie that to our curriculum that we're using and put it all together and so that kids are working on things that are gonna make a difference in all areas?
How do you think the teachers will respond to this?
I think they're probably more invested and committed to their local, the data that they're seeing on.
Yeah, I bet they are, yeah. But to see yourself in context is sometimes, that's the real look in the mirror, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we have some gaps we not only have to improve the number of, kids that are competent. We have a gap to close,
Yes, we do.
you know.
So to summarize, traditionally you said that there would be a dip with a new curriculum implementation. And there would be a dip traditionally, historically with a new curriculum.
Yes,
And with our reports kind of said about a 5% increase instead of a dip.
yes.
I would just be kind of baseline.
That's really, really summarizing, but yes, and it's a celebration. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's real gain here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would also point out, at least according to the sheet, I'm assuming that it's accurate, that overall with ELA, we did close the gap on the state. So that's certainly a positive.
Yeah, we did.
The other thing too, I think is, in terms of implementing
Yeah.
a new curriculum like this.
I mean, it's proposing,
Yeah.
And we try to say like curriculum is curriculum, but when I look at this, I think about what we really did as a district. For the first time in a long time, we had the same curriculum being taught at the levels in each building the same way. We had quarterly goals that were related to student performance, that were monitored, reported, and shared as a whole staff. This is culturally changing stuff. When you read Good to Great, they talk about the brutal facts. Well, we have some brutal facts in terms of our achievement. And
It's encouraging.
And what's been most impressive to me is instead of having a staff that looked at that as, oh, they're pointing out this and they're pointing out this, they pulled up their sleeves and they dug into this and they started learning as they were doing. And they really made adjustments throughout the year that got our kids in a better position. I talked to middle school teachers who were hesitant, one or two of those that were hesitant in the beginning with the program. By the end of the year, they weren't saying, I don't know what the numbers are gonna look like, but my kids in this classroom can do things differently or better than they could at the same time last year. And so I think like what we're committed to is making sure that we continue as a school district to look at where are we at, what are our goals, and how are we gonna do? And when we get to the quarter time, when we look at our results, we're gonna go, what went well? What do we need to fine tune and really get to here to help our kids achieve at higher levels? And they're having conversations not only about these overall numbers, they're having them about the students who are in those positions where they're making the gains. The other thing that I'll say that I think this curriculum does that some others don't is it allows kids to grow more quickly than than others. You know, there's research out there that says you should really be teaching your math curriculum not based off the 90 days that it takes to get through algebra. You send the kid on to geometry when they've mastered the standards in algebra, whether that takes, you know, the 18 weeks or it takes 9.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there's some real, so one of the things that this does, when you look at where a kid is quarterly, is that you allow them to grow multiple times throughout the year, whereas perhaps in another curricular setting, they end up stymied in a way because they're at that grade level and in this spot. So we saw some kids who needed to make growth, make double, like they would go one level and then another level, even within the same quarter time, you know, in our local assessments. So those are some things that, you know, we obviously first experienced last year, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to focus on those results each quarter.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what the teachers are thinking now about themselves and about the program. I mean, it was all new for them too. I mean, it was, you know, that was kind of the base year for them on this approach. And I'm certain that they were reasonably critical of the process, critical maybe of themselves. We don't have any information on what they regard as the strengths and weaknesses of this, do we?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
We
it'd
don't.
be interesting to know, because I would say that there's enough in this to encourage them. I mean, the information I have is that they're pretty much sold now. They want to continue with this. I mean, it would have been a bad thing to just pull the plug. And they will be more informed about what they're doing, and therefore we may be able to anticipate, you know, more predictable growth this year. Yeah, I'm done. Chris?
Do we know how well this test aligns with the Act 20 requirements? Is this going to be the basis of the Act 20 requirements? Because what I see is at our grade schools, over 58% of our students would need individual reading plans according to these results. And at our junior highs, it's more. So
It is?
So here's the thing, Act 20 is for K3 only, and the forward exam starts in 3rd grade. So I don't think there will, the Act 20 requirement is that we're using a different assessment screener.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
that screener will be the yes.
Yeah, because Act 20 requires any student that is not reading at grade level has an individual reading plan for all grades after from 3rd grade on. So it absolutely affects 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders.
Yeah.
I think what you're gonna get to do when as a board, you're gonna get to decide what you're gonna put in the policy for students that get to the end of 3rd grade and going into 4th grade and haven't met the plan, haven't met the requirements for their plan. The
Yeah.
board is going to get to say, this is what we're gonna do in MPSD. The state is going to be sharing out recommendations, what boards could put in. But I think that the individual reading plans are the real focus is K3. And then beyond that is yet to be decided, I think. But you're right. I also think what's not reflected in here is we had the most growth. The largest amount of growth that we had was in K3 this past year with SFA. And that doesn't show up in here.
Oh, really?
Because those students aren't tested. So we saw that growth in the primary grades much more significantly than we did in the older grades. And so I think it will be interesting this next year to see how our 3rd graders do, who have had 1 and almost 2 full years of SFA before they take that forward exam in the spring.
Tony?
So I was just looking at some of the data here, and I just want to check for my understanding. I recall last year at the beginning of the school year, we were right around 29-30%, right? Was kind of the number that we were at grade
That
level.
sounds right.
And now I see that we're right around 39 or 40%, depending on the number. So just going back to what you said earlier about like, the goalposts being moved and all that, like, is it, if I were to think of it like, wow, that's a pretty substantial increase from last year, that's about, it's 10 percentage points or really
Oh, yeah.
almost like a third higher, right? If you divide it out or whatever, 25% higher. Is that a logical way to think about it, or is it like they just moved all the way everything's scored, so we just really don't know?
Yes, it's that second thing.
But keeping in mind
It's
though,
frustrating.
with the change, one of the things they're indicating when they do change how they're measuring that is that they felt a need to correct something that they thought they had wrong too. Like when you're doing when you're norm referencing a test, your goal with that test is to give the most accurate numbers. So when somebody says proficient, it means proficient. And so one of the ways that I'm looking at this too is, could we have had this normed in a way that did show us to be lower than we potentially were when you're looking at the standards? And anytime they redo this, they're trying to look at this in relationship to the standards that the state has in these areas, because that's what the tests are based on. So it's hard. It's hard judgment call to make. But you're right. When you look at it, you go, well, 10%
Yeah,
up,
right.
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And we are encouraged by that. But we also have to point out that it was a different test and a different way to, the benchmarks were different.
Is there any way that we could find out, had they kept it the same, like how much we went up, or?
They don't do that.
No, and I think it's unfortunate that at the same time that the state changed the test, we changed our internal assessment, the Fast Bridge. The year before that, we didn't really have one. The year before that, it was STAR. And so a lot of things changed, and we made that decision before we knew the state was changing the forward exam.
Yeah, right.
But no matter what, it is frustrating to feel almost like we have to wait another year to kind of have something more solid to stand on with this.
Well, in theory, when does that report card come out? Is that October or November? So at that point,
November, I think, they get published.
yeah, don't they do some, if I remember right, I mean, and you're saying, I remember they had that quadrant where they had the different weights for the scores, and you're saying that's gonna change now too,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
I think they might have to, because what they'll see, if you even looking at those blue state average,
Yeah,
that bumped up quite a bit overall. And I'm just looking at the reading
Yeah,
forward
yeah.
score, 41.2 to 50. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not supposed to say that, but anyway, the point is that if that all went up and it's based off growth, they're gonna have to change the way they calculate the school report card data too, and we don't know anything about that yet. So,
But, I guess the one thing that disturbs me is that the gap between us and the state, the state went up, fairly substantially.
Yeah.
Fairly substantially. We did too, but they went up more substantially than we did. If we hadn't done the program that we did, we could really be in the.
I would imagine that we would have gone down. We were on a pretty solid downward trajectory.
Yeah, we were pretty, yeah,
So,
so.
I mean, that had been.
So we're fighting against the current on that one, aren't we? Yeah. So it's too early to like pop the corks, but it's not too early to say, but we're moving in the right direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I think the other thing too, looking forward to this year, like, again, I'm the type of guy, I want to be able to see like, what does the progress look like during the course of the year? And I think one of the things that we feel pretty good about are our Fast Bridge assessment in terms of,
Okay.
I think when we look at it, and we'll do that, kind of fall, middle, end of year, that's going to be a good indicator for us, because as Heidi pointed out, that's where it ended up the growth ended up is about where our fast bridge results were telling us.
Okay. yeah.
So if we have a reliable way to get an update on the game while the game's being played, that's a good thing.
Are there any ways we can tweak Success for All to make it?
I think it's discouraged to be tweaking it. I think they really want you to, like any other curriculum that you purchase, you follow the way. There are definitely moves that teachers can make when they recognize a student needs something or their group of students. You know, the facilitator and the classroom teacher can confer on, you know, maybe we need to do this change, but I think in general, to make a sweeping.
But structurally, we're
Yeah.
not gonna be doing any
Right.
changes, yeah.
Right.
It's gonna be tweaked because we have teachers that are teaching, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to hammer home what you tried to talk about, which I think we can try to articulate better for a bigger presentation about that in-game, being able to change or see the results, be able to have that system established now, kind of gives you guys a roadmap as directors and as, you know, coordinators to have a heartbeat as it's going on. I think we need to be able to explain that to the people better.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're not doing a good job now, but I'm saying that's a huge piece, I believe, in the success of how this is being done, about the system, and how it's organized, and how you have live data coming in. And I don't want to just church it up by saying data, but I'm saying, like, I think that really needs to be a part of the argument or a part of the solution of where you were, you know, in the past and where you want to be, and how, I mean, I want to say, now you have a roadmap essentially, instead of shooting into the dark. Now you can kind of explain that a little bit better to the people of why this is more than just a program, or if it is just a program, we can take a lot of the aspects and make sure that they're rigid so that they can hold up even after you're not, or you're not a director anymore. Because if we have a good system in place, then we can hold it a lot longer instead of just, just you guys being accountable for it. And then all of a sudden it kind of falls apart once somebody changes positions. So I think that aspect needs to be articulated better, that the system has been, essentially you guys learned how to fly a plane while you're in the air. So I kind of want to really hit that home a little bit better. And I know that doesn't come out in the test results, but I wish it could be articulated how that system came from this to where we're at now. So just,
How do you see this data being shared? How do you see this being shared at our meeting that's coming up, like with the remaining board members that aren't here tonight?
You mean next week?
Do we have a school board meeting next week?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a board meeting.
So next week,
Yeah.
day by day, Carrie.
I don't know, I mean, this is probably stuff at this point, right?
Well, so I guess I kind of.
I don't know if we want to share it next week.
I don't, this can't be put out to the masses, the stuff I shared with you tonight, but I think I could certainly add some bullets. I guess I'm wondering, leaving this information, this is helpful?
I think that information.
Gives you
should-
a sense of where we're at.
I think you should give that to the board,
So-
you know.
Present this to the board, not,
Yeah,
and then maybe
But I
just make
think
some
you-
general statements
you
about.
need to say
this
that
and stuff.
the state stuff is still, you know, still like not quite,
Yeah.
you know,
All right,
but it should be centralized on growth.
it's not quite soup. Yeah.
I know, but it should be centralized on the growth that we are trying to do internally, and it's being proven by the Fast Bridge report.
what I could also do is,
Yeah.
even though this is really about the forward exam, I think
Sorry.
based on how everything has gone the last year, I think people do have a desire to see how is the stacking up and how did it turn out that we did SFA. So we could have a comparison of the data from spring that shows the forward exam next to the Fast Bridge, next to the SFA results. We could do that, and that.
Okay,
in
if you
addition
do
to
that, that's
this-
good.
And in addition to this, it might just be good for people to see that comparison too. So
Yeah,
I-
I'm, whatever presentation I do, I'm just gonna try to be, I'm gonna try to be very optimistic.
Yeah.
So that people aren't, I don't want people to be discouraged by any of this, you know?
I don't think.
But I don't wanna lie either, but, you know, I wanna say,
A
well,
little discouraged about our math results.
You know,
but I feel a little discouraged about our math results, but I don't.
yeah,
feel
right,
discouraged.
right.
But we have some really good plans in place for math.
But we
this year, so
took out a program that was working and didn't substitute it with anything, did we?
Math still went up a lot though.
But math, yeah,
Just looking at,
that's right.
and again, I know they, you know, again, if we were to just look at what we can control, right? We can't control what the state does. They're gonna change the freaking thing every like, year or two, right? Because they got nothing better to do.
Who knows, yeah.
But like-
Depends who gets elected.
The big story for me, you know, in retrospect, now that I'm processing this a little bit more, is that we went up in every category for the first time in who knows how long.
Yeah,
And that's a positive any way you slice and dice it.
Yeah.
You know, we have a system now, I think we're just trying to figure out between the different measures we have, right? Forward, Fast Bridge and the SFA assessments, how do we, you know, get those all synced up? And, you know, so there is a lot of positives here. You know, and I think the unknown now is just gonna be like, how does that report card shake out? But I think, honestly, I feel pretty good because if they weight any part of it to growth, like we grew a lot last year, we should be in a.
you know,
pretty good
the
spot.
big thing, I think, what Lee said is maybe the most important thing.
Yeah.
When Lisa and I were on the board, it was like, I don't think we ever talked about this stuff.
Right.
I mean, it was like, we might have noticed the grades, the scores, not going up, but going down. And, you know, there'd be a kind of a remark, but there wasn't kind of a political will at that point. I mean, we can quibble about how we responded once there was a political will. But I think that the fact that this is like one of the biggest topics that we talk about now. And we're kind of creating an attitude and maybe even beginning to create a culture of improvement. And the fact that all of our schools are doing the same kind of stuff, even if Jefferson lags behind Riverview, Jefferson's still getting better. You know, so I do think that, I think we're in the game now, whereas before, we were just sort of looking at it, what was happening to us.
The other thing I'll point out, and I think this is huge, and it's not in this because it's not, they'll say it's not academic data, but I think it is. It's attendance. Our attendance rate went up in every school in our district this year, which is an improvement. And I will tell you, when I'm looking at those solution teams that meet in the elementary, that have goals that are around their priorities. So their attendance team has attendance goals. And when I went to these quarterly meetings in the schools, they were reporting out, they set their quarterly goal, then they report out on it. They set this, they report out on it. Also, we're talking practices.
Yeah.
We're talking universal practices that are working in this school, and we're opening the lines of communication so that this person in this school who's doing this strategy is working and it's being shared. And so, you know, attendance, you know, like, I mean, I was the principal of
Yeah.
the worst percentage attendance for several years, and it was
Oh, really?
something we really were working hard on. And, you know, it's good to see that trend getting bucked in our district, because the more kids are in school consistently, the more opportunities they have to learn and grow.
Well, the other thing too is that because we didn't lose a lot of teachers last year, a lot of the people that have been in on this program are still in on this current year. So I think the retention of teachers is part of the you know, part of the power that we go forward with now. But yeah, I think the attendance thing is really important.
That's awesome.
That should help on the report card too.
Right, I mean, if kids
Yeah.
are in school, they're not here, they can't learn, right?
So anything else?
Of course, attendance.
Anything else?
I would just honestly give a shout out to all the staff. I mean, I know there's a lot of
Yeah,
change
sure.
last year, and, you know, and that starts with you guys at the top of the admin team, and then
Yeah,
going, going downstream. You guys all worked your tails off and did a really good job, and I'm really proud of you guys, so there you go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks a lot, Heidi. This is really good for us to know and to talk about. And I think we have a kind of a good consensus, at least on the one committee here. And I think that's going to be the case with the whole board. Is there a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, any second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Cool.